Uncle Dean, is that really you?
Lin Yi's voice crackled with disbelief. Years ago, a man named Dean Van Looy had lived in the unit below Lin Yi's family. He was a tenant in his 30s who never quite lost his childhood spark, making him a favorite among the local kids. His apartment was a treasure trove of gaming consoles. During every holiday and break, Lin Yi would find an excuse to run downstairs and lose himself in the pixels and controllers at the older man's side. Dean Van Looy never seemed to mind. In fact, he looked just as happy to have a companion for his virtual adventures as Lin Yi was to be there. But then came the change. He got married, and after he and his new bride departed for their honeymoon, neither of them ever set foot in the neighborhood again. The rumors swirled. Some said he'd moved back to his hometown. Others claimed he'd upgraded to a bigger house and started a new life elsewhere. Lin Yi had simply accepted that he'd never see his old friend again. Now, with the horror of the world around him, the truth was becoming painfully clear. Something catastrophic must have happened during that trip.
I knew you'd remember me, kid!
Dean Van Looy's face lit up with genuine joy.
It's been so long. I honestly never thought our paths would cross again.
He turned to the man clutching the shotgun next to him.
Brother Lei, this boy is like a little brother to me. Let's just let them through.
The man called Brother Lei didn't move a muscle. His gaze remained cold.
No.
He whispered sharply.
Don't lose focus, Van Looy. Remember why we're out here. If they've been turned into freaks, it's our job to end them.
But they can't be freaks.
Dean Van Looy muttered with a nervous chuckle.
Your word means nothing here, and mine doesn't either. The only judgment that matters is the saintess. Only after she has seen them will we know their true nature.
The saintess? Lin Yi froze as the name echoed in his mind. He had no idea who this woman was, but if she could really tell a human apart from a monster, then she must be an ability user, someone with a power that cut through the freak's disguises.
Hey, old man, if we actually were those things you're so scared of, do you really think that little pea shooter of yours would do the trick?
Zhang Cheng sneered. Freaks were encased in biological armor, thick beetle carapaces that could shrug off most light arms. A single shotgun wouldn't stand a chance against a real monster.
Are you volunteering to find out?
Brother Lei shifted his aim, pointing the barrel directly at Zhang Cheng.
Wait! Stop!
Dean Van Looy's voice rose in a frantic shout.
Lin Yi, listen to me. Brother Lei isn't an enemy. He's one of the God-chosen individuals selected by a higher power to lead us against the freaks.
God-chosen? Lin Yi's brow furrowed. The list of strange new terms was growing faster than he could keep track of. Dean Van Looy's face was full of worry. It was clear he was genuinely afraid Brother Lei would attack Lin Yi and his group.
Lin Yi, Uncle Dean has never lied to you. They aren't bad people and they aren't freaks. The year my wife and I were traveling, it was Brother Lei who rescued me from those freaks. We all live in a village far away now. Everyone there was saved by Brother Lei and his people. Come with us and see for yourselves. I swear on my life, as long as you are all human, you won't be in any danger.
Lin Yi, did you hear that? They're using our word. They called them freaks.
Zhang Cheng leaned in close, his voice a low, urgent murmur. Lin Yi nodded subtly. He hadn't missed it. Most people who stumbled onto the truth only knew to call them monsters or creatures. It had been the same for him and Chu Kai until they met in Chengdao and saw his files. The term freak was specific, documented. If these people were using that exact label, it meant they had access to the same kind of hidden knowledge, maybe even more than what they'd recovered from the factory. His own documents were fragments, a confusing mix of truth and deception. But if this group had a more complete record, it could finally explain the God-chosen and what had really happened to the world.
Uncle Dean, give us a moment. I need to talk this over with my friends.
Lin Yi turned around, and the group huddled together near the driver's seat of the bus.
All right, you heard them. What do you all think? Should we go check out this village?
He and Cheng Dao and the others were now a single unit. Therefore, everyone on the bus had a right to speak on whether they should go or not.
I think it's worth the risk.
Chu Kai said. He had been chasing the idea of a stable home for a long time.
If they're actually human and they've built something safe, it might finally be the place where I can give Xiao Yun a real life.
And Cheng Dao didn't offer a direct opinion, but his gaze was sharp.
If it's just humans, I can take care of any trouble that comes up.
Exactly. Our Uncle Ann is the best.
Lu Linhai grinned.
I think no one asked for the gorilla's input.
Zhang Cheng interrupted with a smirk.
You want a piece of me? This is serious, and you're still acting like a jerk.
Lu Linhai barked at him.
I'm okay with whatever the group decides.
Chu Yun added softly.
Since there aren't any objections,
Lin Yi sighed.
check your weapons. We're getting off.
Once the decision was made, Lin Yi and the others stepped off the bus. As the doors hissed open, Brother Lei barked orders to his men.
Unit 1, stay here and hold the perimeter. Unit 2, you're with me. We're escorting them back. Once we get back, have Unit 3 and Unit 4 take over the next rotation.
Brother Lei barked, his eyes never leaving the perimeter. Lin Yi and his friends were quickly surrounded. The men from the village moved with a cautious discipline, sealing the survivors within a loose ring while keeping a wary distance. Lin Yi didn't blame them. He knew firsthand how lethal the world had become. Without Chu Kai's unique ability to discern intentions, he wouldn't have trusted a group of strangers either, let alone stepped off his safe bus to follow them into the unknown.
So, Lin Yi, how did you all manage to make it past those creatures?
Dean Van Looy asked, his voice low and curious. Unlike the others, he didn't seem to have a shred of fear in him as he stepped up to walk beside Lin Yi.
The freaks out here aren't the kind you can just walk away from. Honestly, if it weren't for the God-chosen we have back at the village, we'd have been wiped out a long time ago.
Uncle Dean, you keep using that term.
Lin Yi said, his voice level.
What exactly is a God-chosen?
He could tell there was a wealth of information buried in Dean Van Looy's simple enthusiasm. If he played his cards right, he could learn the rules of this new community before they even arrived.
They're people chosen by God, obviously.
Dean Van Looy answered with a shrug.
Only those selected by the Almighty can. Van Looy!
Brother Lei's roar cut through the air like a whip. He was walking at the head of the file, his eyes scanning the path ahead.
Get over here. Don't say another word to them until we've confirmed their humanity. We haven't seen their true faces yet.
Dean Van Looy jumped at the sharp command. He gave Lin Yi a quick, apologetic smile before scurrying back into the protective circle surrounding the group.
Do you think these God-chosen are just people with abilities like us?
Chu Kai whispered, leaning in so only Lin Yi could hear. Lin Yi weighed the possibility. If Brother Lei and his people were successfully rescuing humans from the freaks, it was almost certain they wielded some kind of supernatural power. Labeling it as divine was likely just their way of making sense of the chaos.
It's very likely. That's the least of our worries.
Zhang Cheng said, joining the hushed conversation.
What really matters is this saintess they're all so obsessed with. Agreed.
Lin Yi nodded grimly.
The reverence they show her is intense. She's clearly the anchor of their group, and if she's the one who decides who's human or not, her ability must be incredibly potent. Without her, they'd be flying blind. She's the one who sees through the masks. I was thinking more along the lines of, saintesses are usually gorgeous, right?
Zhang Cheng countered, a smirk playing on his lips despite the tension. The comment was so wildly out of place that it momentarily broke the heavy atmosphere.
Eyes forward!
Someone from the surrounding escort snapped, their voice sharp.
Keep your focus on the road and watch those trees. They're not just bark and branches anymore.
The vegetation here was wrong. The trees didn't grow toward the light. They coiled and warped into skeletal, unnatural shapes, their trunks twisting into jagged knots that choked the path. If it weren't for the constant obstacle course of gnarled roots and thorny branches, Lin Yi and his companions could have covered twice the distance by now.
Stay sharp. Watch your step around those thorns. You don't want them brushing against your skin.
Why's that? Are they just sharp? Or is there something else?
Worse, they're venomous. The toxin won't kill you outright, but you'll spend the next few days in an agonizing, itchy hell that nothing can soothe. And the moment you scratch hard enough to draw blood, those wretched mutated birds will be circling over us before you can even cry out. It's not just the birds either. At night, the giant black rats crawl out of their burrows. They can smell a single drop of human blood from miles away. Trust me, kid, you'd rather face the birds than those rats. They're the real blight of these woods.
Rats? You're telling me we're supposed to be trembling over a bunch of oversized vermin?
Zhang Cheng let out a short, cold rasp of a laugh, his eyes flashing with derision.
Your confidence is proportional to your ignorance. In a dying world, rats are the ultimate survivors, teeming with filth and breeding at a rate humanity can't even dream of. If there's anyone left when the dust finally settles, it won't be us. It'll be the swarms. They're the true heirs to the apocalypse. Besides, the creatures out here aren't the house pests you're thinking of. If the birds can mutate into those monstrosities we saw, the rats have likely become something far more grotesque.
The boy's right. One bite, even a tiny nip, and the wound will never close. It just starts to fester, the rot eating its way through your healthy tissue. The only way to survive is to cut the rot out immediately. Hack the meat right off your bones before the infection spreads to your heart.
And then you bleed from the surgery, and the scent brings back even more rats. It's a perfect, vicious death trap.
Lin Yi cast a wary glance at the coiling shadows of the mutant trees, his grip tightening as he steeled himself against the unseen predators lurking just out of sight.
They seem decent enough, surprisingly.
And Chengdao murmured, his voice barely audible over the forest sounds. The escorts hadn't dropped their guard for a second, but their eyes held more concern than malicious intent. They genuinely seemed to fear that Lin Yi and the others might be monsters in human skin. As the group navigated the treacherous path, the men had been quick to offer warnings about every hidden hazard. Perhaps Dean Van Looy's assessment was correct. These were survivors who had escaped the freaks' farm cities. The trek through the suffocating, mutated woods ground on for over an hour, every step a test of endurance against the coiling roots. Chu Kai suddenly paused, his eyes narrowing as his enhanced senses picked up something on the wind.
There's a large gathering up ahead.
Chu Kai whispered, leaning closer to Lin Yi.
Their village must be right over that ridge.
Can you be certain? Are they all like us?
I'm sure. It's 100-strong crowd, all humans. I can even hear the distant sound of children playing and laughing. It's safe.
A massive weight lift from Lin Yi's shoulders at those words. A hidden sanctuary full of humans. If there were children laughing, then these people couldn't be the predators they had feared. Minutes later, the jagged perimeter of the village finally came into view. The sanctuary Lin Yi had imagined was far from the reality before him. It wasn't a village so much as a desperate, crumbling encampment clinging to the edge of existence. Most of the structures were little more than rotting wooden shacks, hand-lashed and leaning precariously against the ruins of older buildings. The people here stayed huddled within their crude shelters, their eyes tracking the newcomers with a heavy, unblinking suspicion that made Lin Yi's skin crawl. Then he saw them, a handful of children, no more than 7 or 8 years old, playing together in the dirt. But at the first glance, the sight of them stole the breath from his lungs.
The children. Look at them.
They were grotesque. One child, though nearly school age, had a mouth as empty as an infant's, his gums smooth and toothless. Another was covered in bulbous, fleshy lumps that he scratched at with an animalistic intensity, seemingly oblivious to any pain. Their bodies were emaciated and stunted, their spines warped into hunched arcs. They moved with heavy, dragging limps, their expressions vacant and sluggish. As they cackled, a sickening mixture of mucus and saliva bubbled at their lips, sucked back into their mouths with a wet smack that suggested a total loss of human dignity.
Chukai, you're absolutely sure? These things, they're really human?
They are. Their heartbeats don't lie.
But how can that be? What could have possibly turned them into this?
Zhang Cheng watched the children with a detached, clinical gaze, his mind already piecing together the data.
Mutation. It's the same rot that claimed the trees and the birds. It seems the biological warp of the outside world is universal. Remember those city limit defenses you mentioned? It's highly likely they weren't just meant to keep us in, but to keep this environmental corruption out.
If that's the case, then why are the adults in this village normal? Why are they the only ones suffering?
It's because these children were born after we left the city?
Dien Van Looy said, his voice heavy with a grim resignation. He had been walking a few paces ahead, but he turned back now as if he'd been expecting their questions about the village's broken youth.
Whatever the reason, any life brought into the world beyond those borders, it inevitably ends up like this, twisted and strange.
Perhaps it's a cold-blooded strategy?
Zhang Cheng hypothesized, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the emaciated forms of the kids.
A way for the freaks to ensure that even if humans escape their farms, they can never truly rebuild. If we can't produce healthy offspring, we can never become a threat to their dominance again. Whether they poisoned the very air of the outside world or tampered with the genetic makeup of the livestock they raised, the result is the same: stagnation, extinction from the roots up.
The genius trailed off, the silence that followed feeling heavier than the air of the mutated woods. The implications of his words hung between them like a death sentence. The group finally reached the fortified boundary of the settlement. The air here felt charged with a different kind of tension, one of organized military alertness.
Brother Lei!
The guards stationed at the entrance shouted the name with a synchronized discipline that suggested a deep reverence for their leader.
Relieve Team 1 immediately. Send Teams 3 and 4 to take their place on the perimeter. As for the rest of you, stick close. I'm taking you to see the Saintess. She'll be the one to decide your fate.
The legendary Saintess of the encampment resided within the skeletal remains of an ancient ancestral hall, a building that still commanded a strange, silent authority over the village. Brother Lei motioned for the group to wait on the stone steps before disappearing into the hall's darkened interior alone.
A saintess, huh? I'm putting my money on a world-class beauty. Why else would they guard her so fiercely?
The heavy wooden doors groaned on their rusted hinges, but the figure that shuffled out behind Brother Lei wasn't the young maiden Zhang Cheng had anticipated. It was a withered, white-haired old woman. She moved with a fragile, faltering gait, yet her clothing, a bright, youthful style favored by girls decades younger, was jarringly out of place.
Great Saintess, these travelers have emerged from the Forbidden City. I beg of you, look into their souls. Are they truly of our kind, or are they the freaks' abominations?
Zhang Cheng nearly choked, his jaw hitting his chest as he stared at the frail crone in disbelief.
You've got to be kidding me. That's the Saintess? Where are the long legs and the flawless skin? This is a scam! Keep your damn mouth shut.
Lin Yi hissed, his eyes flashing with a warning.
Look at the guards. If they catch a single word of that disrespect, they'll tear you apart.
The elderly woman ignored the whispers, her slow, deliberate steps taking her toward the newcomers. She stopped first before Lin Yi, her clouded eyes seeming to peer through his very skin. After a heartbeat of agonizing silence, she gave a single, shallow nod of approval. The crone moved to Zhang Cheng. Again, the same piercing scrutiny. Again, the brief, confirming nod. But when she stepped in front of Lu Linhai, the atmosphere shivered, her serene mask shattered, replaced by a look of sudden, visceral dread. The saintess stumbled back as if she'd been struck, her tiny frame trembling as she scanned Lu Linhai's body with a frantic, horrified intensity.
What is it? Is there something on me?
Lin Yi and the others looked at Lu Linhai, their eyes searching for any sign of mutation or abnormality. But to them, he looked exactly as he always did. The silence was broken only by the old woman's ragged, hitching breath. Finally, she managed to find her voice. Her mouth fell open, revealing gums where nearly every tooth had long since rotted away. A hollow, dark abyss within her face. Slowly, she raised a gnarled skeletal finger and pointed it directly at Lu Linhai's chest.
You! What the hell are you?
What is her problem? Why is this old lady cursing at me over nothing?
Lu Linhai looked genuinely wounded, his face a mask of confusion as he struggled to process the unexpected hostility. But the saintess's words had already set things in motion. Brother Lei snapped into a combat stance, his eyes narrowing with a lethal focus. With a sharp metallic click, he chambered a round into his shotgun. The heavy barrel leveled directly at Lu Linhai's chest, steady and unforgiving. And Cheng Dao reacted before anyone else could blink. He didn't hesitate, his calloused hand blurring as he retrieved his heavy cleaver from his gear. He gripped the hilt tight, the steel catching the dim light. He stood like a stone wall, ready to strike back the moment a trigger was pulled.
A god chosen.
Brother Lei's brow furrowed, his shock evident. The sight of the weapon seemingly appearing from nowhere caught him off guard.
Peace, everyone. There is no need for this.
The saintess raised a frail, trembling hand, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable weight. She gestured for the man to lower his weapon.
This boy is not one of the freaks.
She turned her clouded gaze toward Lu Linhai, her expression unreadable.
However, he is not human either.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
Lu Linhai's breath hitched. He had spent his entire life as an ordinary guy. How could he suddenly be labeled a non-human?
Great Saintess, are you certain? Could there be some mistake?
Lin Yi spoke up, his voice tight. He remembered the past, the weight of his own actions when he had ended Lu Linhai's life in another cycle. He was certain his friend was human.
The Saintess is never wrong. Her eyes see what we cannot.
Brother Lei's voice was like gravel, his loyalty to the old woman absolute. Chu Kai remained quiet, his senses working overtime. He had noticed something off about Lu Linhai for a while, a rhythmic pulse that didn't quite match a human heart. He had ignored it before because Lu Linhai had proven his worth, even risking his life for the group. But now, the seeds of doubt were beginning to sprout.
Do you think he is a hybrid? Some kind of unnatural union between our kind and the freaks?
You have got to be kidding me. That is insane.
The thought made Lu Linhai's stomach churn. The idea of those tentacled nightmares mating with humans was beyond grotesque.
No, it is not that simple.
The Saintess shook her head slowly, her white hair swaying with the movement.
There is no human scent on him. Yet I feel none of the freak's corruption either. He is an anomaly, something I have never encountered.
Great Saintess. Is there another possibility?
He really is neither human nor freak, because he is a gorilla. You have probably never seen a gorilla that looks like this, which is why it is confusing for you.
Zhang Cheng leaned in close, a mischievous glint in his eyes. He seemed entirely unfazed by the life or death tension surrounding them. Lu Linhai glared at him intensely, but his anger only seemed to embolden the smart aleck.
Gorillas do not usually go around harming people, so he is not a real threat. We should just keep him as a pet.
Zhang Cheng continued his taunting, completely ignoring Lu Linhai's mounting frustration.
No. If he is not one of us, he cannot stay in this village. He is a risk we cannot afford to take.
Brother Lei's voice was like cold stone. He was clearly ready to drive the boy out into the night, regardless of Zhang Cheng's jokes. But just as the argument reached its peak, something caught the Saintess's eye. Her gaze suddenly sharpened, and a tremor ran through her thin, aged frame.
This is...
Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it rang out with a sudden, frantic energy that silenced the group. She began to walk forward, her steps surprisingly quick for someone so frail. Lin Yi watched her with a mix of awe and concern, fearing she might collapse under the weight of her own realization. The saintess glided past Lin Yi, her focus entirely fixed on Chu Yun. Chu Kai's eyes narrowed, his protective instincts surging as he stepped between them, shielding his sister from the old woman's gaze.
What are you doing? Stay back.
Little girl, come here.
The saintess ignored him, extending a beckoning hand toward Chu Yun. The air around her seemed to shimmer with a strange magnetic pull.
I said, what do you want with her?
Chu Kai's voice rose, a warning growl underpinning his words.
Show some respect. You are speaking to the saintess.
Brother Lei barked, his hand twitching near the heavy weapon at his side.
It is okay, brother. Let me see what she wants.
Chu Yun placed a calming hand on Chu Kai's shoulder. She could feel the mounting tension and did not want Brother Lei to do something they would all regret. She stepped around her brother and stood before the old woman, her small frame dwarfed by the hall's imposing facade. The saintess reached out, her fingers cold and dry as they traced the curve of Chu Yun's cheek. A look of primal joy spread across her wizened face.
I found her.
She whispered, her voice cracking with intense emotion.
I finally found her.
Have you touched her enough? Let her go.
Chu Kai pulled his sister back, his jaw set in a hard, stubborn line.
Great saintess. Is it her? Is she truly your successor?
Brother Lei approached, his eyes wide with a sudden, desperate hope.
Precisely. This little girl will become the new saintess. She will lead humanity to take back everything that belongs to us.
Chu Kai stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. His sister, a leader, a saintess? It was too much to grasp in a single moment.
Great saintess, what is this all about?
Everyone, as you can see, I am old. My health is failing. My time is limited.
She coughed, a dry, rattling sound that shook her entire body.
Infinite power resides within this little girl. After my death, she will be the new saintess.
I refuse.
He rejected the idea flatly. He had spent his life keeping her safe from the shadows. He would not hand her over to a cult in the middle of nowhere.
You do not need to answer so hastily. This is destiny. It is her responsibility, one she cannot escape.
The saintess looked at him with an ancient, pitiless gaze, as if she could already see the path ahead.
Having escaped that city filled with freaks, you must all be exhausted. Rest in the village for a few days.
The previous excitement seemed to sap the last of the saintess's energy. Her thin body shook with a renewed, fragile intensity.
Great saintess. And what about this thing?
Brother Lei spared a dismissive, hostile glance toward Lin Yi, his lip curling in a slight sneer.
This thing! I am standing right here, you know!
Lin Yi's temper finally flared. Being discussed as if he were a piece of refuse was more than his pride could bear.
Let it be. If he can stay by the new saintess's side, perhaps that is also the arrangement of the god.
The saintess spoke softly, offering a weary shake of her head. Brother Lei gave a stiff, formal nod before signaling for two villagers to support the old woman. They helped her turn away, guiding her back toward the dark entrance of the ancestral hall.
You may move about the village, but you are not permitted to leave. Do not even think about crossing the boundaries.
Brother Lei turned back to the group, his eyes cold and commanding as he watched the saintess disappear inside.
On what grounds? We never said we wanted to stay in this place.
Lin Yi snapped back, his voice echoing in the cooling air of the courtyard.
This is for your own safety, and to protect the new saintess from any external threats.
His response was sharp and final. Lin Yi opened his mouth to retort again, but Lin Yi caught his arm, offering a subtle, firm squeeze. Lin Yi made a small gesture for him to hold back. Fighting now would only lead to a standoff they were not prepared for. Lin Yi's mind was already racing. These people knew details about the freaks and the God Chosen that the group desperately needed to learn. Rather than causing a direct confrontation, it was better to go along with their rules for now and lower their guard. Once they had gathered enough information, escaping wouldn't just be possible, it would be easy. Brother Lei led the remaining villagers away, leaving the small group alone in the deepening shadows of the courtyard.
Gorilla, do you have anything else to say now?
Zhang Cheng leaned in close, his voice dripping with mock sympathy.
It is pretty much settled. You are officially an animal.
Bullshit! What Saintess? I'm a human! A real living human!
Lu Linhai hissed through gritted teeth, his fist clenched tight. He refused to accept a reality where he was anything less than who he thought he was.
Let us just look around the village for now, talk to some people, see if we can find any clues about this God-chosen business.
Lin Yi whispered his plan, keeping his voice low as he surveyed their dark surroundings for any movement. He wanted to know exactly who they were dealing with, and how many people in this place possessed the same unnatural gifts they did. But before he could finish, he saw Chu Kai's face go suddenly pale. His friend was staring off toward a dark corner near the edge of the stone path. A group of children were huddled there. Their skin was translucent. Their limbs seemed slightly too long, and their eyes were large and unblinking. They were pointing and whispering.
What is wrong? What are they saying?
They are talking about us.
Chu Kai's voice was a barely audible rasp. His enhanced senses were picking up every whispered word, words that chilled him to the marrow.
They are discussing which part of us tastes the best.
Zhang Cheng didn't flinch. In fact, his eyes gleamed with a morbid fascination that was genuinely unsettling.
I'm curious,
he said, leaning in.
Did they specify which cut of me is the tastiest? I'd hate to be underappreciated.
Chu Kai shot him a look of pure, unadulterated disgust.
You're all bone and attitude.
Chu Kai snapped.
The consensus was that you'd be more trouble than you're worth on a dinner plate.
Haha, see? Being scrawny has its perks. If these people really are man-eaters, I guess I've got a few extra days of shelf life compared to you lot.
Lu Linhai's expression darkened.
Are we actually considering this, that they eat people to survive?
It's a logical possibility.
Zhang Cheng said with a casual shrug. He gestured vaguely at the desolate wasteland surrounding them.
Look around. The world is dead. The freaks have picked the bones clean. Supplies don't just happen out here. Everyone's got to eat. It's the most basic drive. And when the shelves are empty and the hunting is bad, you go back to the most traditional source of protein, long pig. Think about those bus intercepts. You think they're doing that out of the goodness of their hearts? Maybe they're just restocking the pantry.
His gaze drifted toward the group of children playing in the dirt a few yards away.
Ever heard of prions? Consuming human flesh isn't exactly healthy. It triggers neurological collapse, prion diseases, cognitive failure, physical tremors, madness. Honestly, they look a lot like those kids over there.
Before the horror of his words could fully sink in, a figure emerged from the settlement. It was Dien Van Loi, jogging toward them with a surprisingly light step. He was beaming, his face flush with a relief that felt almost alien in this place.
Lin Yi, great news. Brother Lei gave the word. You've been cleared. You're all human, and you're welcome to stay. And there's more.
His eyes fell on Chu Yun, and the casual friendliness vanished instantly, replaced by a deep, reverent awe.
This young lady, she's the one, isn't she? The Saintess's successor, I can feel it. One look was all it took. Even from a distance, I knew she was touched by something extraordinary.
Uncle Dien.
Lin Yi interrupted, his voice sharp and cautious.
Is something wrong?
Oh, no, nothing at all. I told my wife the news that you'd arrived. She insisted that you must be famished after your journey. She's already started on a meal for everyone.
He gestured enthusiastically toward a cluster of shacks deeper in the village.
Come, let's get some food into those bellies. Follow me to my place.
Lin Yi hesitated, his hand hovering near his pack.
Uncle, we can't do that. Food is too precious out here. We have our own supplies. We don't want to be a burden.
Don't talk like that. It's not the city, sure, but we're not beggars. We manage, we have our ways. No one in this village goes hungry, I promise you that.
He spoke with a simple, earnest pride. There was no deceit in his eyes, just the genuine hospitality of a man who truly had enough to share. Lu Linhai leaned in, giving Zhang Cheng a sharp nudge in the ribs.
I thought you said they were starving?
He whispered.
You just love hearing yourself talk, don't you?
Zhang Cheng just clicked his tongue, his face a mask of bored indifference.
Come on then, you'll see soon enough. Just, well, don't be too judgmental of our local cuisine.
A flicker of unease mixed with Lin Yi's hunger. He shared a look with the others before they began the trek deeper into the maze of wooden shacks. The shack was a grim piece of work, cobbled together from raw timber and scavenged planks. It looked like it might collapse if the wind blew too hard, but the gaps in the wood were plugged with rags to keep out the chill. There wasn't even a proper door, just an open frame leading into a single room. The only furniture was a crude wooden platform that clearly doubled as a bed for the entire family.
I know it's not much, borderline primitive, really.
Dien Van Looy said, gesturing for them to enter.
Please, just make yourselves at home. Don't worry about the mess. Life out here has a way of stripping away the luxuries. You learn to appreciate the four walls and a roof, even if they're a bit drafty.
Lin Yi stepped onto the packed earth floor, shaking his head.
We're in no position to be judgmental, Uncle. Survival is the only thing that matters.
They had prepared for the worst the moment they left the city gates. Compared to the damp, predator-filled caves of the mountains, this drafty shack was practically a palace. A woman pushed her way into the shack, her presence signaling a shift in the air. Her skin was leathered by the sun, and her eyes carried the heavy weight of exhaustion.
Lin Yi! It really is you!
She exclaimed, her voice cracking slightly.
Tell me you haven't forgotten old Auntie Em already.
She was lugging a heavy wooden bucket, the contents steaming and giving off a thick, pungent aroma. The liquid inside was a dark, uninviting gray.
Auntie Am.
Lin Yi said, a small flicker of recognition breaking through his caution.
It's good to see you again.
Zhang Cheng leaned over the bucket, peering into the murky depths with an exaggerated frown.
Uncle Dean, I've got to ask, what exactly are we looking at here?
Dien Van Looy's hand went to the back of his neck, a bashful, almost guilty look crossing his face.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. This is rat soup, local delicacy.
Rats?
Zhang Cheng's smirk finally faltered, his posture freezing as he stared at the bucket.
The giant black ones from the perimeter?
Lin Yi asked, his voice low and calculating. Dien Van Looy nodded solemnly.
There's nothing else out here. The birds are too fast and the crops won't grow, but those rats, they're everywhere. They're the only reason we're still breathing.
Don't you worry. I spent all afternoon preparing them.
Auntie Am said, setting out crude wooden bowls.
I know it's hard to stomach at first, but when your belly starts screaming for meat, you stop caring where it came from. I've got a few choice cuts roasting over the coals out back. I'll go fetch them. They're much easier on the eyes than the soup.
Let me give you a hand with those.
Dien Van Looy said, following his wife back out into the darkening village. Lin Yi watched them go, then looked down at his bowl. He wasn't repulsed, not really. He knew how the world worked now. If the choice was between eating vermin and starving while fighting monsters, the choice was already made. He ladled a small portion into his bowl. The liquid was thick and dark, but surprisingly, it didn't smell half bad. It was a rich, gamey scent that made his stomach growl despite itself. He used his sticks to lift a chunk of the protein. The meat was jet black and stringy, shredded into long fibers. If no one had told him what it was, he would have suspected it was just some exotic breed of livestock.
Hypothetically speaking,
Zhang Cheng whispered, his eyes darting between the bowls.
what are the odds that this rat meat is actually human?
And Cheng Dao, who had been studying the texture of the fibers with the cold intensity of a forensic surgeon, looked up and shook his head.
It's not.
He said, his voice flat and authoritative.
Human muscle tissue has a different grain. This is consistent with a rodent of significant size.
Lin Yi took a breath, his resolve hardening.
I'll be the test subject. If I don't drop dead or start convulsing in 10 minutes, the rest of you can dig in.
The silence that followed was heavy with the collective growling of their stomachs. They were starving, and the desperate need for calories was rapidly overriding their biological disgust. Their meager travel rations were nearly gone. If they were going to survive the trek to the Great North, they had to adapt. They had to learn to eat what the wasteland provided. Lin Yi took a deliberate bite. A wave of intense, gamey flavor hit his tongue, followed by a sharp, metallic tang that made his throat tighten. It was genuinely foul, triggering a momentary gag reflex, but he forced himself to chew. He focused on the texture, tough, stringy, and entirely alien. He swallowed, the lump of meat sliding down his throat like a stone. He sat perfectly still for several seconds, monitoring his pulse, waiting for a reaction that didn't come. The tension was broken by the sound of Dean Van Looy's boots on the dirt. He was carrying several skewers, the aroma of charred fat and smoke trailing behind him.
Fresh off the grill.
He announced, waving the skewers.
The roasting burns off most of the musk. My wife even trimmed the cuts so they'd look more professional. Can't even tell it's vermin, right?
The meat on the skewers had been cubed and charred to a dark mahogany. Without the telltale tail or paws, it could have passed for venison or tough beef from a distance.
We're out of salt and spices, so it's a bit plain, but it's honest protein. Dig in while it's hot.
To prove his point, he tore into a skewer himself, chewing with a vigor that seemed entirely genuine. He then offered the remaining sticks to the circle of survivors. Lin Yi locked eyes with Chu Kai. He gave a single, firm nod. The signal was clear. It's safe. Eat. None of them would ever forget that first meal in the deserted village. For most, except for the stone-faced and Cheng Dao, each bite felt like a monumental struggle against their own humanity. The meal seemed to stretch into eternity. But as the warmth of the broth spread through their bodies, the sharp edges of their paranoia began to soften. For the first time in days, the constant clawing hunger was finally silenced. The moment they stepped back outside, the true nature of the village began to bleed through. The sky had turned a bruised, ink-black color, and the wind carried a biting chill. Despite their full stomachs, the group felt a renewed sense of urgency. The warmth of the meal was a temporary shield against the growing dread of their surroundings. They finalized their scouting teams with a series of sharp, whispered commands. Lin Yi would lead the Chu siblings toward the village center, while Lu Linhai and Zhang Cheng flanked the perimeter shacks. And Cheng Dao, as always, chose the path of the solitary observer, vanishing into the shadows of the western alleys without a word. But as they began their investigations, the realization hit them like a physical blow. The silence, the layout, the very air itself, everything about this village was fundamentally, structurally wrong. The people here were almost too kind. Every time they spotted Lin Yi and his group, they would descend on them with wide, fixed smiles and relentless hospitality. Every attempt to uncover the village's secrets was met with a practiced wall of silence. The villagers' responses were hauntingly consistent. With the Saintess and the God Chosen watching over us, our village remains a sanctuary. We are completely safe here. It was impossible to get any real details. Lin Yi couldn't draw out a single meaningful answer from any of them. The moment the conversation turned to the village's defenses, their tone shifted. They would deftly change the subject, leaving the truth obscured.
I can't shake the suspicion, Chukai. They're telling us exactly what we want to hear. Almost like they're trying to trap us here.
I've been thinking the exact same thing.
Chukai's gaze swept over the peaceful, rustic surroundings, but he found no comfort in the view.
The Saintess and Brother Lei claim they're fighting to reclaim what humanity has lost. But look at this place. We've been exploring for hours. Where's the training? Where are the weapons? I don't see anyone preparing for a war. It's all just quiet. Way too quiet.
Hey, Chukai, have you noticed something weird about these people?
Lin Yi threw a quick, polite nod to a villager waving from afar, but his eyes were sharp with suspicion.
I missed it at first, but the more we walk, the more obvious it becomes. Every single person in this village is hunched over.
Their spines were unnaturally curved, some only slightly, while others were bent double under an unseen weight. Initially, he'd written it off as simple fatigue. In a world where every day was a battle for survival, poor posture seemed like a minor detail.
Brother Lei and his men seem fine. Well, mostly. You have to look really closely to see it on them. But the older they are, the more extreme it gets. Even the Saintess wasn't spared.
The image of the old woman emerging from the ancestral hall flashed in his mind. He'd originally assumed her trembling gait and curved spine were simply signs of advanced age. But now, that simple explanation felt dangerously naive.
Hey, do you remember that shack we passed a few minutes ago?
Chukai cast a cautious look behind them, his voice dropping to a barely audible whisper.
While you were busy distracting the owners, I managed to get a quick look inside. There was someone in the corner, lying face down on a bare wooden plank.
Everyone has their own preferred sleeping position. Under normal circumstances, lying face down wouldn't be all that unusual. But that usually required the cushioning of a real mattress. On a hard, flat piece of wood, it would be incredibly painful, if not impossible.
He didn't move an inch. If I wasn't listening to his heartbeat, I would have sworn he was a corpse. Think about those hunched backs. If your spine is that curved, you shouldn't be able to lie flat against a hard surface like that. And yet, he was doing it. I could see a massive lump bulging right out of his back through his shirt.
A mutation? Do you think that's what it is?
Chu Yun's voice was small and tight, trembling with a growing sense of existential dread.
Is it like the deformities we saw on those children playing earlier?
It's a distinct possibility.
Lin Yi's eyes drifted toward the dark, looming silhouette of the ancestral hall standing silently in the distance.
Let's head back there.
He leaned in close to Chukai, his expression tightening as his resolve hardened.
We need to get closer to the Saintess. If we can eavesdrop on her, we might finally uncover the truth behind this village.
I was thinking the same thing. Let's move.
They slipped through the shadows toward the ancestral hall, keeping their distance to avoid detection while staying just close enough for Chukai's ears to pick up any sound. Chukai stood still, his eyes squeezed shut as he strained to filter out the ambient noise of the village. For a long, silent minute, he listened. Then, he slowly opened his eyes and shook his head in disappointment.
What do you hear? Did she say anything?
Nothing. She sounds like she's already out for the night. But her breathing, it's the same rhythm as that guy in the shack. The one who was face down on the planks.
The Saintess is sleeping face down as well?
A cold, prickling sensation spread across Lin Yi's skin. The coincidences were piling up into something terrifying.
Wait, if they're all doing it, does that mean they've got something hidden on their backs? Are they afraid of what will happen if they roll over? Like they're protecting something growing out of them?
But what? What could possibly be on their backs that forces them to sleep like that?
Chu Yun's question hung in the air, unanswered and heavy with dread. Lin Yi stood paralyzed for a moment as the pieces began to click together in his mind. The dread was a physical weight in his chest.
Think back to the documents Uncle Ann recovered, the ones about the freaks.
He took a quick, nervous scan of their surroundings, ensuring no one was nearby to overhear.
In those files, freak wasn't just a name for the creatures in the city. It was a broad classification for something much bigger. It applies to every type of monster in this world, every single species.
They had spent so much time dodging mantis wolves that they had subconsciously assumed all monsters would look like that. They had ignored the possibility of other, more subtle horrors. The thought of what might be standing right in front of them made Lin Yi's blood run cold.
Wait, are you suggesting the villagers are actually monsters? Another kind of freak entirely?
Chu Kai's face paled as the implications settled in, his brow furrowing in deep agitation.
Damn it. I was so arrogant. I thought my ears were enough to tell the difference between us and them.
He realized now that his singular biological test was flawed. Different species of freaks likely had different physiology, different heart rates. His hearing wasn't a foolproof detector anymore.
But if they're monsters, why haven't they tried to eat us yet? Is it a trap? Are they waiting for us to figure it out before they attack, like the ones in the city?
No, this feels different. The city monsters are secretive. They maintain the illusion of being human until the very last possible second. It's like an unspoken rule, a treaty of deception. But these people, they talk about freaks constantly. They even acknowledge special abilities. They aren't hiding the existence of the supernatural. They're just hiding themselves within it.
A new insight hit Lin Yi like a physical blow, his eyes widening as he turned back to face the others.
Chu Kai, think for a second. Have you seen any physical evidence of freaks in this village? I mean, the mantis wolves we fought back in the city.
No. Why would there be? I thought those things were confined to the urban areas. Besides, their heartbeats are unmistakable. I would have known if one was anywhere near this place.
I'm not talking about living ones. I'm talking about corpses.
Corpses?
Chu Kai blinked, the question catching him completely off guard as he processed the strange request.
If these villagers have really been venturing into the city to rescue people, they must have constant bloody run-ins with those creatures. They must have killed dozens, if not hundreds of them by now to keep this sanctuary safe. So, where are the remains? How are they disposing of all that biological waste?
Lin Yi's gaze swept over the cluster of shacks, searching for any sign of monster trophies or materials.
In a world where resources are this scarce, you don't just discard useful materials, not if you want to survive. Their carapaces could be forged into armor. Their forearms would make perfect blades. We should be seeing those parts everywhere. But look around. There isn't a single scrap of monster biology in this entire village. Not a tooth, not a claw, nothing.
Maybe they just have a central disposal pit? Somewhere far away from the residential area?
Chu Kai offered the suggestion, but even his own voice lacked conviction. He was starting to see the cracks in the narrative too.
We've only seen a fraction of the village. Maybe Uncle Ann or Lulin Hai found something different on their scouting mission.
Lin Yi remained silent. These were all just theories, but the doubt was already spreading like a toxin through his mind. The village had lost its luster. It no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like a cage designed to keep them docile and compliant.
We need to go. We have to find Uncle and Ann, the others immediately. If their findings match ours, we're getting out of here. Fast.
They turned to make their way back toward Dean Van Looy's residence, but a small, uneven shape detached itself from the shadows ahead. A young boy limped toward them, his movements jerky, unnatural, and filled with a strange, frantic urgency. As he entered the dim edge of the light, the horror of his appearance was laid bare. His small face was a mass of bulging, fleshy lumps, a grotesque distortion of a human child. He stopped just a few feet away, his mouth hanging open in a hollow, vacant grin that revealed a row of serrated, crooked teeth. His eyes, wide, unblinking, and devoid of reason, were locked onto Chu Yun with an intensity that made the air turn cold.
Mama!
The boy's hand, thin and trembling, rose slowly to point a bony finger directly at Chu Yun's chest.